Welcome to Women Igniting Change, the place to be for women leaders and decision makers who are passionate about changing the world and determined to act. I'm your host, Robbin Jorgensen, former corporate executive, global speaker, and founder and CEO of Women Igniting Change. Let's dive in. Hey, change makers. Welcome back to the Women Igniting Change podcast. Today, I want to walk you through a valuable tool that you can use to analyze your connections as it relates to the social impact that you want to create. Or if you're already in the midst of creating this social change, it's a great tool to help you reassess the key players that are going to help you make this real. And it's called a Social Impact Stakeholder Map. So a stakeholder map is designed to help you raise awareness of the interconnections and the interdependencies, both inside and outside of your sphere of influence. And it's a great visual representation of the people who want to participate in your social impact and those who can help influence it and make it real. So as you're engaging with these various stakeholders, it really helps you expand your footprint and gain valuable insight around the impact that you want to have. So these stakeholders could be individuals, they could be associations, and they also could be organizations. So as you're thinking through stakeholders, quote stakeholders, think through those various aspects, and I'm going to give you some ideas as to who those could be in just a moment. So I'm going to categorize them into two levels of engagement as you're creating your map. The first one is levels of interest. So who are those individuals and or organizations who are interested in the social change that you are trying to make real? These could be people who want to help collaborate with you to bring it to fruition. These could be individuals that are helping gain visibility and helping you put the message out there. They could be individuals that are helping volunteer to help you make it real. So that's levels of interest. The second level of engagement I want you to consider is level of influence. These are individuals and or organizations that can open doors for you that you can't, or they can make introductions to you to individuals that you don't have access to. That's levels of influence. So as you're thinking through those two levels of engagement, there's a couple of questions I want you to consider. In what ways is your social impact dependent on others? Probably you're going to need a multitude of individuals to help you make this real, and it's not something you can do solo. So think through in what ways is your social impact dependent on other people helping you bring it to fruition. The second question is, what do you need from other people to be successful in helping to address this issue? And that could be a multitude of things depending on what your social change is. So now I want to walk you through how to create this incredible map. All right, let's get ready to create this stakeholder map. So this is an 8-step process that I'm going to walk you through. And again, remember, in the show notes, we're going to put a PDF so you can download this and walk it through as you're listening to this episode and pause it as you go. So step 1, I want you to list all of the people and organizations that are either involved in your social impact if it's already underway, or those you want to be involved. And each one of these is going to have their own Post-it notes. So you are going to need a couple of supplies: small Post-it notes, markers and or pens or pencils, flip chart paper if you have it. If you don't, regular paper is just fine, but you're likely going to need probably 3 or 4 sheets taped together to give yourself enough room to put these Post-its. So step 1, list all of the people and organizations that you want to be involved in your social impact. And each one of those is going to have their own Post-it with their name on it. So that's step 1. Step 2, here are the different entities that I want you to consider as you're thinking through who these individuals and or companies could be. So they could be community leaders, maybe it's foundations, they could be government officials, depending on what your social change is. They could be nonprofit leaders. They could be those that you wish to serve. That audience could also be one Post-it note. They could be business leaders. They could be celebrities, friends, families, colleagues. Also your team. If you have a team, make sure to include them as well. So that's step 2, is to consider through all of the different entities that could have a Post-it note on your stakeholder map. Step 3, now I want you to arrange these Post-its on your blank page with you at the center. So you're in the middle. And I want you to put those that you interact with most closest to that center Post-it, which is you. So those that you interact with most often, put those toward you in the center. Step 4, I want you to move these Post-its around until you get a general sense of how everything interacts with you and others. So you could have potentially a government official and or a business leader that interact with each other that you may have strong connections to or maybe weak connections to. So they may interact with each other, but they're not really close to you. So they're going to be a little bit further out on your map. So step 4 is move those around until you get a general sense of how everything interacts with you and with each other. Step 5, this is where I want you to assess the stakeholders in terms of their level of interest and their level of influence that I mentioned earlier, with 1 being less important and 5 being very important. So if you have a business leader and their level of interest in the social impact that you're going to put out there, you think is a 4, they're really, really interested, put a 4 in the top right corner of their Post-it. If you have someone who's a level of influence where they're going to be able to open doors for you, but you may not have a connection to them, maybe that's like a 2 or a 3 level of influence in the top right corner of their Post-it. So each individual or entity, I want you to look at it through either the level of influence or the level of interest and put a 1 through 5 in the top right corner of their Post-it. So that's step 5, is assessing the stakeholders in terms of level of interest and level of influence. Step 6, now I want you to assess the information. So again, you are in the center of this stakeholder map. If you have communication that flows from you out to a local business leader around your social change, I want you to draw an arrow from you out to that individual. If you have maybe a government entity that provides you information, I want you to have an arrow going from that Post-it where the government entity is toward you in the center. The arrow goes toward you. So you're assessing the information flow. Does information go from you out to these entities? Then the arrow is going to go out. If it goes from these individuals or associations into you, the arrow is going to go in. You could also have them flowing back and forth to each other. So arrow out means information goes from you out to them. Maybe it's sharing knowledge or projects or tasks. Arrows from those people or organizations that regularly give you information, that's going to be an arrow in to you. And or they can have arrows to and from each other that they share information. So that is step 6. Step 7, I want you to step back and consider and review what you've done so far. So consider how the knowledge and the communication flows. Are you happy with what you just created and how that information flows? And is there anything you want to revise? You might want to move some Post-its further away from you. You might want to clump some together if that makes sense. And always keep in mind that vision that you have for your social change as you're thinking through these different questions. And then step 8, now I want you to assess the strength of these connections. So you've assessed whether they're a center of level of influence or a level of interest. You've assessed where they are in relation to you in order of importance. You've assessed whether they're a 1 through 5. You've done the information flow, which way that goes. Now I want you to assess the strength of this connection. So if this is someone that you'd like to reach out to at some point, but you don't have a really solid connection, that's going to be a weak connection. So between your Post-it and them, I want you to draw a dotted line. That indicates it's a weak connection. A regular, typical connection, this could be with someone on your team. That's just going to be a solid line between your Post-it and theirs. If you have a really strong connection with someone, maybe you have a super solid connection with a local business leader that can help you advance this, that's going to be a double line. That's going to be a strong connection. So that's another way for you to assess this stakeholder map. Once you step back from all of that and you've done all of those elements, and again, you're going to have a PDF that's going to walk you through each of these steps. So you can pause this episode as you're going through each one. I want you to take a step back and consider things like, what issues or communication gaps were revealed to you as you look at this map and you step back? There's likely going to be connection gaps or communication gaps that reveal themselves to you. You may see someone that is, either they're a 5, but they're not really close to you on the map. They're way over here on the top left, but they need to be closer to you. And you're like, oh, that's a problem. You've got to make a stronger connection and communication with that particular individual. So that's one example. Another question to consider is, what do these challenges impact your approach to making that social impact real and thinking through that. So if you have someone who's a 5, who is a level of influence that you really need in your corner, but they're not close to you on that map, which means you don't have a strong relationship with them, how is that going to impact your approach to making your social impact real? And what are you going to do about that? Where do you see opportunities? That's another question to consider as you're looking around your social impact. And what's your biggest insight from drawing the map? So I'm going to give you multiple questions. I'm not going to reveal them all here, but they will be in the PDF because there's quite a few. It's going to take you probably a good 30 to 60 minutes to think through all of these questions as you review your overall stakeholder map. And it's really going to give you an incredible visual representation of what you need to do next. Now I want you to dive into thinking through the centers of influence. And those are individuals and or organizations that are really well regarded in the space that you want to influence and impact. And they have a ton of credibility and potential to provide introductions for you and or resources that you might not have access to. So they tend to have really impressive decision-making power, and they have tremendous assets in helping you achieve this social impact vision. So what I want you to do is I want you to identify at least 5 centers of influence. In the information you receive in the PDF, you'll see them noted as COIs, Center of Influence. So identify 5 of those that you feel these individuals and or organizations can really help bring your social impact to life. And I want you to go and research them on their social media profiles. This could be Facebook, it could be Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn. I really want you to dive into each one of them. I want you to look through their history. I want you to look at what do they post, what type of content do they post. I want you to look at who they follow, because likely those are also individuals that you can reach out to at some point to bring into your sphere to help make your social impact real as well. Go out and listen to interviews that they've conducted. Go to Google, type in their name and click on news or click on videos. Listen to interviews that they have conducted. See if they've been featured in any news article or any insights or publishing that they've done. Really deep dive into each one of these centers of influence and even create like a quick Google Doc on each one with all of these elements. So you really get a well-rounded approach as to who this individual is. And while you're doing this, keep in mind the categories from your stakeholder map. So as you think through who those centers of influence could be, think through, are they community leaders? Are they government officials? Are they high-level philanthropists in your local community? Are they the individuals that you wish to serve? Do they come from that audience? Are they business leaders? Are they celebrities? So as you're trying to think through who those 5 could be, think through those categories that you already created with your social change map. Once you've done all that research for those 5 centers of influence, now I want you to reach out to them. I want you to send a connection request on LinkedIn. That's probably the most professional way to do it. So send a connection request on LinkedIn. Comment on some of their posts before you do this so your name starts to become familiar. So take a good couple of weeks, do a very insightful comment on any of the posts that they do so your name starts to crop up, and then send them a connection request. That's one way to get a hold of them. Another is to find out who their assistant is and get their contact information and let their assistants know why you're reaching out to them and leverage any connection information that you used in uncovering your research. So it could be that maybe you went to the same university, or maybe you're from the same similar small town, or you share similar interests. So chances are when you do that deep level research, you're going to find some type of connection that you can use when you reach out to their assistant to let them know why you want to have a conversation. So I want you to have a direct ask when you're speaking with their assistant. And ideally, what you would like is 20 minutes of their time to provide an overview of the social impact idea that you have and to inquire if they can think of anyone you should be speaking to. So you're not asking anything of them directly. You're asking, here's my social change idea. Who should I speak to about this? So you're asking for their connections, which is a much easier in. You're not really requiring anything of them. You're just asking for who you should be speaking to. And then for follow-up, have information ready that you can send them that provides a summary of the social impact that you'd like to have. Have it professionally designed, have it branded, something that really stands out and gives a quick summary as to what you want to put out into the world. That's going to make you stand out to them. And then once you've done that initial contact, here's how you can cultivate this relationship over time. And it really depends on how that information session went to begin with, right? If you made a great connection, maybe you provide them updates on how the vision is progressing over the course of 6 months, over the course of a year. Maybe you find out something from them that they're interested in, and you find a relevant article that you think they may find of value, and you send that over. If you have connections, offer to connect them to someone in your circle that maybe they may not have connections to. Maybe you attend a keynote or a conference that's of interest to them, and you do like a quick summary of the notes at the conference and you send that over. So there's many different ways to engage and cultivate that relationship over time. Because remember, this is someone that you want in your corner to help make your social change real. So I know that's a ton of information, but I really do want to hear from you once you create this stakeholder map and once you identify those 5 centers of influence. We want to hear from you. So let us know what this map looks like. Let us know if you have any questions. We are here to support you and to help you. So with that, we will see you back here next week. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye. Thank you so much for listening to Women Igniting Change. I know creating change matters to you. If you enjoy what we talk about on the show, please take one action today and share it with someone who could benefit from listening. Until next time, keep standing up and speaking out for what matters.